Welcome to the First Right Podcast, a weekly conservative news show brought to you by Restoration PAC. I'm Doug Truax, founder and president of Restoration PAC. Today we are blessed to have a new guest, someone we will be speaking with often in the coming months. She is Gina Swoboda, executive director of the Voter Reference Foundation, an organization dedicated to ensuring transparent, fair, and accurate elections in America. We helped create the organization and will have much more to say about it in the coming weeks. But for today, we want to talk to Gina about the Maricopa County vote audit in Arizona. Gina lives in Arizona and has worked in and around the state's election system for years. So she's the perfect person to discuss what's going on there.
Thank you, Doug. It's a pleasure to be with you.
It's great to have you here in person. It's good stuff. So, all right. So, it's difficult to get accurate, kind of reporting on this. You got the left disparaging what's going on in Arizona. And then when the right says stuff, it's like, okay, well, we've already gone through some things on the right with what people were saying and stuff. So, give us a little history of kind of, what prompted the audit overall, and then at what point do you think it's going to be over? Because I think everybody's watching this thing going, okay, what's happening?
Sure.
Where's this going?
So I think one of the initial issues, it's the constituents, right? Your constituency has to have faith in the process and confidence that the election was conducted well, and everybody had an opportunity to vote, and everybody's ballot was counted once. There was a large amount of people. First, we had an incident with Sharpies. This did not affect in any way the accurate tabulation of the votes. However, people in Arizona were trained for 20 years never to use a Sharpie.
Right.
And then there was new equipment and they advised them to use it. So even before the tabulation started, people had a concern. As we got closer to the election, people expected things to go one way. And as always, when the reality doesn't meet the expectation, there are questions. It would have been a great thing had people been able to sit down together and discuss the process
Right.
and go over the issues.
Right.
But the partisan divide is such in Arizona at this point that just was not possible.
Sure.
So a series of constituents reached out to their representatives in the state legislature, as we do when we have questions in our representative democracy, and they requested an audit. And because the Board of Supervisors and our legislature and our Senate side could not come to an agreement, the Senate issued a subpoena. A judge said, yes, that subpoena is valid. Go ahead and comply. And thus, we came to the audit. And that's where we are now.
All right. And then, so how much longer do we have of what's going on now? Like, I know it's probably a guess, but what do you think?
I'm from the outside looking in. It looks to me like I don't see any conceivable way they're going to be done before July.
Okay.
And that's because I think they had, it appears as though they had initial issues staffing up. I know the agreement they published online between the Senate and the auditors says every single volunteer needs to have not only like a domestic background check, but an international background check. So that takes time.
Who knew?
Exactly. Well,
Right.
and as it should be, we don't want people handling the ballots that haven't been fully vetted, right?
Yeah.
So, there were
Avoid more
difficulties
problems.
staffing it up, but they're rolling now. They had to shut down for a week. There were graduations scheduled at that facility. They're back to work now. They're adding 2 more shifts. So hopefully things will pick up the pace and they get better as they go.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so here's where you're an expert and you can talk about the granular nature of some of these things. So just talk us through the process of this audit. What does it look like? What are people doing and what's going on?
Based on the reporting and what we've seen thus far, they have teams doing a hand count. So at each table, they have 3 people, and there is a pretty cool looking dolly kind of going around, and they put a ballot on it, and it gets spun around to all 3 of those reviewers. Each of them has a tally sheet. They're making their tick marks as they go. When they complete a batch, those sheets are then verified by a runner who comes over, and that person verifies their count. And then all of those counts are entered by someone doing 10-key punch data entry and verifying the count again. They're only looking at the top 2 races, so that's just the presidential race and the Senate race, and that's due to time constraints. When that piece happens, that's separate from their digital imaging. They have a series of tables where they're doing DSLR photography and microscopic photography. They're looking at folds in the paper. They're looking to see were these ovals completed by a human hand. So both
But those
teams,
are 2 different sets of ballots,
two
right?
different. Well, the ballot initially gets photographed, and then that ballot gets rotated around and reviewed for the tally. So it's a hand count process. It's a photographic imagery process, and then there's a forensic process of the equipment and the servers, and they're trying to get the router, but there's a debate about that right now.
Okay, yeah. Lots of debate about the router. Okay, yeah. So in this whole process then, if there's going to be some type of fraud or irregularities or whatever that are going to be found, what's it going to look like? What are they going to find?
Outside looking in, my understanding of the process and how we held the election, I hold our election officials in Arizona in high regard. I know most of them personally. These are good and dedicated public servants. As with any process, the volume of the work they're doing, there's potential for human error. There was a new process implemented, electronic adjudication. I think every election official in Arizona knows I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
It's the first time we didn't reproduce these ballots on paper at the end. So if you had a stray mark on your ballot or a write-in or an overvote and it kicked out, a team looked at a digital image and then they kind of recreated it with software, but it never got put on paper. In Maricopa County, there were over 200,000 of those ballots.
And just to rewind, though, you said that's the first time this has been that's
Yes,
happened.
this electronic adjudication.
Previously, it was just take the paper that you had
and recreate it on paper.
Okay.
So
All right.
teams
A team would do that.
Yeah.
And then on the team would be a Democrat and a Republican.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So it's a complicated process. I stood in for a little bit in my capacity in the Secretary of State's office during the primary and tried to help them out with a team member. And if I'm looking at the screen and writing on my sheet what the votes are, the other person's clicking with the mouse. So for both of you to stop, write it down, look at the sheet together, and then click together, that amount of volume, over 200,000 in that limited time window, I think it was about 17 days, 14 days they were doing electronic adjudication. It's really not feasible.
So how many teams were there about doing this?
Well, we had our observers during the election, so like 3 rows of people, two at a table. So it looked to me between at least 14 of them, but it varied.
Sure.
You know, we had concerns over COVID, so we had a little bit of a shortage. People were kind of shuffling in and out. Again, human error, new process, high volume, short timeline.
Right. And
it's
so,
conceivable.
yeah, so if you've got it up electronically, and that click through, it just creates a faster environment where if there is a problem, it's hard to catch it because you're just going so fast, right?
Exactly.
And
it's
so,
just speed.
So then we were talking earlier about the sheer numbers here of what we're talking about. What's traditional?
Yes.
And what do we have in this situation? So not only do we go from paper to this electronic way, but the numbers
The volume was out of scale. So there's a report called an EASE report that every state files with the Elections Assistance Commission, and it does not require that you track adjudication data. So we don't have an ability to go back in time. But what we do know is that Maricopa County itself, in their election and emergency voting contingency planning guide, they forecast 2 to 4%, which would be 30 to 70,000 ballots, would be electronically adjudicated. We wound up with 11%, over 200,000.
Wow.
So that's so far outside their own forecast,
Sure.
and because it's a new process,
Sure.
there's always room for improvement in the system.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's worth taking a look, and we want the constituents to be happy and have confidence in the system.
Yeah, but this is a COVID kind of thing.
Well,
right? Well, so you talked to that a little bit. So
sure.
I'm trying to now, as we go through all these different things, and we're looking at a lot of states right now. It's just super handy that you're in Arizona and know it so well. You know, I'm trying to be, so, you know, I'm kind of new to this game, just like a lot of us are, right? We're like, okay, well, that sounds like a problem, but how much worse did it get because of the COVID environment we were in?
That's an excellent point. So in most states, I would say, they did not have, I'm generalizing, outside Arizona, they did not have a robust mail-in program. Nevada, for example, mailed people ballots that had never done it before, so you would expect a high rate. But Arizona has had mail-in voting for a long time, and we have been over 70% of our voters voting by mail for a long time. That being the case, to me, it is unusual that you would see that high of a rate of ballots kicking out of your central count tabulator for stray mark, write-in, right? It's unusual because our voters are experienced.
Sure.
We did have high turnout. We had the highest turnout we've had since the 85, 86 cycle. So that's a factor. But it is so widely outside the forecast range, and we are so experienced at voting by mail in Arizona. to me, it suggests it's worth taking a look at the process to see if it can be improved.
Yeah, right. So back to the audit then, if you're replaying what happened in the voting days and then now we're going back one by one. So
Right.
it just slowed everything down now.
Yes.
The audit piece is like, okay, let's take our time now and go
Yeah,
through
exactly.
bit by bit. Okay.
To me, there's no downside to reassuring the voters.
Of course.
There's all upside. If there were errors in the process, if there's always going to be human error, then we can address them. We can fix them. If everything was perfect, ooh, yay,
Yeah,
people
right.
feel better.
Sure.
If things need to be improved, they need to know that too.
Sure.
But there were so many questions and there was so much outcry. I do think I always believe in transparency.
You bet.
Right?
You bet.
Sunlight's the best disinfectant. Show everybody.
That's right.
Show them how good we are.
Truth is everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that every time we have these conversations with other people from other states and even the work you're doing for the Voter Reference Foundation, it always feels like to me that the states in general had gotten a little sloppy in different areas and just, nobody's really paying a lot of attention to it. And then you start overlaying the COVID thing and everybody takes their hands off the wheel and let's just push a bunch of ballots through. And then, now I think as conservatives, we're in a place where we really got to pay a lot more attention. There's a lot of energy now in this, but paying a lot more attention to the system and fixing it. And so do you think as you go through this audit, particularly in Arizona, there's going to continue to be more legislation, more look at everything? I know they've already been working hard on that. Yeah.
I do. I think this is the greatest opportunity for a serious voter education effort that I have ever seen.
Right.
I've loved elections and election integrity most of my life. The people are ready to learn.
Right.
Let's help teach them.
Right.
Let's open up the process. It doesn't have to be a black box. It shouldn't be an opaque thing that only election officials understand. If we want people to have confidence in the system, they need to understand every aspect of the system. And we're finally in a place where people want to learn about it. So the more we do, the better it is. The
Right.
more we talk about it, the more we show people how it works, the more faith they have in the system, the more people will vote.
That's
The,
right.
the downside of saying everything is fine, your concerns are misplaced, go home and stop calling us, is that voters stop coming.
Right.
And I believe that that's part of what happened with the turnout in Georgia.
Sure.
If people don't believe that there will be a difference, they will stop participating, and
Absolutely.
then we'll have nothing.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I do think that some of the work that's being done across the country is all to the benefit. I love the constitutional republic. The form it takes is our representative democracy. If we don't go to the ballot box, there is no governance as we know it.
That's right.
So
That's
it's
right.
all upside.
That's right.
All upside.
Yeah, for sure. And everything's hinging now on the future of our elections and getting to the truth every time.
Exactly.
And if we don't get that done, I look at this process and I have to think to myself, you talk about the black box and bits of it. If something's opaque and you can't quite get to it, that's where the immoral cheater is going to go and try to
This is true.
figure out how to get that piece of it. And the folks that are moral, trying to do the right thing, they don't maybe not even know that thing exists over there. But
That's
you just
right.
have to continue to open the whole thing up so that everybody can see, and it makes it harder for people to cheat. That's
This
where
is
we
true
gotta
too.
go. Yeah.
I mean, the more transparent we are, the more faith we have, the more open it is. I think the less likelihood there is of fraud.
Absolutely.
I think we have new systems and human error. If somebody did attempt to commit fraud, we have checks and balances.
Right.
But let them know.
Right.
Why invite someone to spend their time trying to break the system? We can only strengthen it and make it better by being more transparent.
That's right. And the work that is happening there, and also some of the work you're doing, wouldn't you say there people are looking around at other states and they go,
sure.
that happened over there. Let's look into our state and see what happens. Don't you think
That's right.
there's going to be a snowball effect here of things that people are figuring out, right?
I think that there is a lot of introspection going on.
Yeah.
Again, election officials are heroes to me. They work incredibly hard. It is traditionally an undervalued job
Right.
under immense time and pressure
Right.
constraints. However, no one is above answering to the people. Nobody. Everybody has to understand that the people are the ultimate arbiters of whether something is fair or not. And whether it's New Mexico looking at voter ID, comparing it to Arizona, who has a robust system. If it's Georgia saying, hey, you know what? Maybe Fulton County should take a look at these absentee ballots, which a Superior Court judge is looking at. It's all to the good.
Yeah.
You know, it can only be upside.
Absolutely.
But we have to welcome it and not be defensive.
Right.
I recognize people in a lot of cases are taking it personally, and it in some cases has gotten ugly. But if you're going to fight about something and you're going to get passionate and get involved,
Yeah.
learn about it,
Yeah.
do some outreach, educate people. It's all to the good.
Have to get it done.
You have to get it
Yeah,
done.
good. Well, appreciate all the work you're doing.
Oh,
and
it's an
really
honor.
Appreciate you coming on, and you'll be back on, I'm sure, right?
I hope so. I would love to.
All right, great.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, sir.
Thanks. Well, all right, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and for supporting conservative media. Don't ever forget, working together and staying diligent, we conservatives can bring our country back to true greatness. So until next time, let's all keep praying that God will continue to bless America.
First Right, a new kind of news summary without liberal slant. Every morning, in your inbox, always free. Subscribe now at restorationofamerica.com/firstright or text First Right to 1-312-820-9167.